Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. My name is Jasleen Kaur, and I'm a transcreator on the Guru Granth Sahib Project. We're excited to announce the release of the first half of Gauri Thiti Bani. Before I get into reflections, I think it's important to kind of understand the context of this composition. This composition is set in the paradigm of lunar calendars and the practices of astrologers or fortune tellers or just the general public who use this calendar to dictate which particular days they ought to do particular things and which days they ought not to do particular things. And often this is tied to sort of ritual and engagement with the divine in certain contexts. So this practice is still quite prevalent in South Asia and globally, and it tends to dictate the strategies of lenders and spiritualists and politicians. And it results in a kind of calculative game that has entered people's psyches so much that they will or will not do certain things in specific spaces or times. And this sort of idea is delivered to us in the rag or musical mode of Gauri. So Gauri is a musical mode that encourages its listeners to strive even harder to achieve a particular objective without sort of making oneself arrogant or self-important. And so the aim is stability rather than the gamification of things. And it encourages like a focusing on maybe the things that are harder to do and require more effort, that don't build our sense of individualism or like worldly accomplishment, rather than focusing on the things that are easier to do, but are ultimately kind of empty and transactional and build up our sort of ego. So the thing that we're seeking here in this composition is a kind of stable, peaceful, and lasting accomplishment that requires like great effort. So I thought I would focus on the Raha line, which appears in the first 40 or stanza, because it sort of gives us a sense of like what this composition is all about. So Guru Arjan says, "O my friend, the praise of the earth knower, of the one light, should be sung daily. In the company of the wisdom-oriented, virtuous beings, one should always sing praises." So this is something that we're told before the Guru even kind of gets into the different days within this lunar calendar system. So the purpose of these compositions is made very clear to us. We're shown that things are much simpler than we've made them out to be, but that's not to say that these simple things don't require great effort. But the sort of general point is that like it doesn't matter if we're at a full moon or a new moon, and it doesn't matter like what phase of the moon's waxing and waning we might be in, because this like calendar is ultimately not important. The only thing that matters is that we spend our time regardless of the day, regardless of the condition of the moon, and regardless of our own conditions, singing praises of the one, of the earth knower, the one who knows creation. And it's through this statement and through this like guidance that like, it's not just that we should be singing praises of the one, it's that we should be doing this in the company of others who have made this their work, of the wisdom-oriented ones, of the virtuous ones. It's with this statement that the Guru urges us to kind of pull ourselves out of the complicated transactional systems that we're a part of, and urges us to sort of look at how much simpler things could be if we just made this effort all the time. And it's something that I think I'm reflecting on kind of similar to the past few releases that we've done, where it's like, maybe I'm not literally taking part in like a lunar calendar system. Maybe I'm not literally letting this calendar dictate when I engage with the divine, but I do certainly like engage in a transactional relationship with IkOankar. I think that it's really common for us to exist that way, even if it's not all the time. And as we like end this year and move into the new year, I think that like we tend to see sort of calendar shifts or yearly shifts as like allowing for certain things. Like we convince ourselves that the end of the year is when we should really be doing our reflecting, when like we could be doing it all year. And I like do this, right? So I think that is what I see as kind of the overarching message here, is like one, we've made things much more complicated than they need to be, and two, we've allowed sort of external things to dictate what we do in our relationship with the divine, and when we do them. And what we really ought to be doing is sort of reflecting at all times. What we really ought to be doing is reflecting on our conditions as the ones who are fallen, as the ones who want to be sort of raised up. We ought to kind of examine the way that we're immersed in sort of fear rather than remembrance, the way that we're constantly seeking comfort but can't seem to find it. And I think once we do that reflection, we'll start to understand that we can practice remembrance at all times. We can praise at all times, and we can exit these kinds of transactional systems and relationships with the One. We can see every day as auspicious and as an opportunity to engage in that remembrance. And we can see how that changes things for us, how maybe it leads us to finally finding the comfort we seek and the freedom we seek. So I encourage you to spend some time with this first half of Gauri Thiti Bani and reflect on it, and maybe take some time with the word meanings and the translations and the transcreations and the commentaries as always, and look forward to the second release, Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.